you know.
It's a good number of commas.
Yeah, everything can be negotiated,
No
but
doubt. No doubt, bro.
it's got to make sense and freedom.
Mm.
Because the freedom now, bro, I think freedom might be the most important thing.
It might be. But are you willing to die for that shit? That is what I ask the slightest. Because at the end of the day, you can be free, but it's not going to make it easier because you're free. And actually, now that you're free, there's going to be more people that's trying to lock you down or put you in a certain space or try and keep you confined because they know you have the freedom to do whatever you want. And it's threatening because there's so many that don't have it, like you say. So you're going to have not more obstacles, but you'll have a lot of adversities because you're doing it by yourself and you're on your own. But at least when you look into the mirror at night, or at least when you look around at the people who's around you, you'll be satisfied with who you see and what you see in the mirror. You won't feel like, I sold myself, or I tainted my music, or I conformed, or I changed who I am just so that I could get ahead, you know? I think that the freedom, as important as it is, it's a big responsibility, bro. You know, because it's on you. You're free to do what you want. So if you want to wake up at 10 o'clock every day, 11 o'clock every day, you're allowed to. It's on you, you know, but you're going to start seeing that the result of that freedom, it also comes with a big price tag, like I'm saying, because I've been free 10 years, baby. I've been free 10 years. Okay, there's a lot of Owens that can also say that, but they're older than me. So I've been free since I started. I came into the game free. I'm a grown man sitting here, still the same, you know what I mean, in the same state, more or less, that I was in when I started. And like I say, I mean, we spoke earlier on, and I said, like the industry counts me from 2015 to now, whereas there's 5 years prior to that. And how did I survive in that 5 years if my career only started in 2015? You know, there was a long time of freedom where when I speak of freedom in this aspect, I'm speaking of like real freedom. Like there's no plugs in the radio, there's no plugs on TV. We are making clothes, but it's on a very small scale, it's very minimum. And the people that's around me aren't strong enough to co-sign me to a point where someone who's bigger is going to take note or is going to take me seriously. You know, the people who's around me is the same, they're in the same boat, they're in the same position, they started with the same resources or maybe less. So that is the kind of freedom that I'm talking about, when you literally build it with people that are unknown, that have no skill in it, that have almost no knowledge in it, but you guys are going to learn together and you're going to teach each other the lessons of the game. You're free to make mistakes. You're free to win as well. You know, when you win, it's a big W. The W is for everyone now because you all win. And when you lose, you take it very hard on yourselves because you know the loss is on you because you were free to make the decisions that you made and it led to a loss. So that's why I tell us like this. Are you willing to die for freedom? I mean, when you speak of freedom in this country, especially in this country, bro, most of our freedom fighters died. They're not still alive. And the sad part is that there's no new freedom fighters. There's no one fighting for freedom now, like on the political front line. I mean, maybe there is, you can say EFF to a certain extent, certain guys who rattle the cage, and I do like that. But I just mean like in terms of someone speaking on behalf of either themselves or a community, just based on it, with no political agendas. I'm not trying to win votes by speaking about whatever. I just want to say it so that we can give the lighties something to survive with. There's no one like that anymore. And who are they now? They us, bro. We are now the, quote, freedom fighters.
Let me stop you right there.
Okay.
I still got to do the intro.
Ah ouais, salute.
In 5,
4,
3, 2, 1. Lab Live. You were saying?
Yes. So I'm going to pick up where we left off, man, bro, and just say that.
Stop. You
said earlier on, it's not a problem to speak with you because you're a natural. That's what you told me.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That's what just happened now, like 5-10 minutes prior to us switching on the record button and being like, okay, we're going for take 1 now, you know? And I mean, you said you want to have it as a conversation.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can introduce me to these people out there in, you know, online land and TV land.
I think like the intro that you just did,
that kind of explains me.
Explains you enough.
Yeah.
The only thing people need to know is that you are viewed as someone who's a voice.
Yeah.
You know, over and above music, over and above being just a rapper, you are in a unique position more than most, where people view you as a representative of where you're from. Not limited to, but that is what you have sort of taken upon your shoulders.
A spokesman on behalf of. I remember something you told me once upon a time. You said like, yeah, Young, you lucky, bro, because you come from one place and it's like you can represent that place to the fullest, and it's like you embody the place and you personify the place and you speak about the place and you look like the place, you sound like it. You know what I mean? Like, you then made me understand that you had traveled so much in life and that you had all these different places that you stayed in. So it's like you didn't have a specific city or place that you felt like, yeah, I can represent this to the fullest because this place properly describes me or properly describes how I was brought up or my values or the fundamentals. Like, on the one hand, you get me, that is just like from one kind of a background or demographic, and then you get you so exposed to all this variety across the world, man. And then if you look at how we present ourselves, I mean, whether it be music and fashion, it speaks like that, you know? If I look at you now, and even if I look at the set and if I look around, I can see you've traveled the world. If you look at me now with the silver and my little jewels in there, you can see that I'm from Cape Town. You can hear that I'm from Cape Town.
Even the way the cap fits.
Even the way the cap fits, the way it looks on my head. The dry fit, pulling it deep down into it so you almost don't see the eyebrows. That is how brasso of mine dressed over the years. So that is like automatically how I felt I was supposed to perceive myself to the music industry. That's the image I wanted. I wanted the same image that I had the whole time. I didn't want to now become a rapper and suddenly change how I present myself. I still wanted to like, okay, now we wear silver, we don't wear gold. My brother wears gold all the years. So that is how he presents himself because he never ever had another way of dressing. So for me it's the same thing. I want to just present that environment and personify it, and put everything that environment includes into myself and then express it in that way. So whether it comes out in the music or in the visuals or in the clothing, my appearance, I wanted to scream Cape Town. I wanted to scream Kaapstad. I wanted to scream CPT and West Kaap and West Coast so that I don't have to do much explaining. People say South Africans don't have an accent. But they're saying like there's so many different, cultures in South Africa. How can there be a South African accent? But yet everywhere I've been in the world, as soon as I open my mouth, they can kind of tell where I'm from. They don't say South Africa, they say, Kaapstad. I mean, when I was in Europe, that's what they said. They didn't call it Cape Town, they said Kaapstad. And that let me know, like, okay, shit, this thing of ours actually has legs. It lives somewhere else other than in Cape Town. I always thought it was just us that kind of knew about us. And I mean, to a certain extent, that is the truth. But once I then came out of Cape Town and brought this whole image with me and took it somewhere else, I mean, first to Joburg, then overseas, it was very easy for people to identify where I was from.
Why is that important for you?
I feel like hip-hop has been exploited enough, bro. Like every single sound, every version of hip-hop is being done. I mean, now the UK is getting a light shone on it again. But it had that light already with guys like Tiny Temper and all of that Owens that came out in like the early 20s. Like there was a time when grime and garage music was the shit already. It's just a resurgence. So for me it's like, when was the resurgence of Cape Town? Brasso van die Kaap. 15 years. It's not a resurgence, bro. That is like that's a throwback. And I feel like because this hip-hop canvas at the moment is so colorful and so big and so vast, like, I just want a corner. I just want one palette. Just give me one palette. I don't need the whole canvas. But this canvas needs us. This canvas needs our color. This canvas needs our contribution. Because if you look at the origin of SA hip-hop, maybe people can start it wherever the fuck they want. They can pick a place on a map and be like, it started here in the Eastern Cape, or it started in Joburg in 96. Please stop the debates now. It started in Cape Town. The story was fine in the beginning, but now the story is starting to get twisted around and like, it was adopted early in Cape Town, but it actually began when it started in Cape Town. Let's just cement that point. This South African hip-hop that we are a part of now started in Mitchell's Plain. And I know it's a cuck thing to admit sometimes. Like, I mean, I can believe it. Because just imagine, like, the biggest and best culture in the world that's currently run by you wasn't started by you. How would you feel about it? You wouldn't feel that cool, really. I mean, you still have a leg to stand on because you're the one that's keeping it going. You're the reason why it's thriving. You're the reason why kids are doing it now. But if you transport yourself back to a time when this shit was not popular, when it was banned, when it was sanctioned, when it was apartheid, when it was based on your skin color, imagine what it was like to just say, fuck the police in that time. You could probably get killed for that shit. You know?
At the worst time.
At the worst time to be outspoken. That is when hip-hop was beginning, 70s, 80s. Whereas Joburg adopts it from mid-90s, 95 onwards, maybe 94, And we coming from the 80s, end of 70s, and the 90s. But this is a time when no mainstream exists for these people. There's no platform for these people. So they had to come to Joburg. And I credit Lawrence for that. I credit Ghetto Rap for that shit. Lawrence built the music industry in the beginning with one hip-hop group, a super group, if you will, that included everything. DJs, b-boys, rappers, graph artists. That's hip-hop, baby. The last element is the knowledge. And all those men in that group had it. Because if you watch that old interviews, I mean, Reddy D dropped some clips the other day. You should follow Reddy D, bro. He dropped some clips the other day, okay? And it was from 92, 93, if I'm not mistaken. And this is when they were actually doing the presidential campaign for ANC. And Nelson Mandela was obviously now being elected as president. Can you imagine what that is like in that time to go to schools and encourage lighties to vote for the first time ever for a black president and the man is in prison? Like, what kind of bravery does that require from an oppressed group of people? How strong must they be to go up against a system like that? If you speak to Reddy D and you ask him these things, he'll obviously give you much more like insight and in depth about what happened. But I spoke to him before, like briefly at like different times in my life. When we started becoming close, I got to ask like more personal questions. In the beginning, I could just ask the normal shit. But then as like our relationship grew, I was like, hey, there's certain things I want to know about SA hip hop, or there's certain things I want to know about how POC did it from Cape Town in those days. And he told me things like, hey, in those years, because of what they were saying, because they were so brutal, like with the honesty and outspoken, I mean, they were living in exile. They were banned from all media and all publications in South Africa. They traveled with weapons, pistols, just in case they were stopped by the authorities, not by gangsters, by the authorities, because they were wanted. Because what they did is considered treason when you speak out against the government. And in that time, that is what they were faced with. What bra today, in 2020, is in fear that they are going to be hunted down by the government as a rapper? There's no one that has that kind of pressure on them. Motherfuckers' pressure now is like, how am I going to be number one on iTunes for the next week or two? That's pressure now. To stay number one on iTunes, to stay on the charts, to be relevant, to be current. That is the challenge now at the moment. The challenge for Prophets of the City, before 93 even, was how do we spread this message to the South African public, even though it's banned, and how do we stay alive at the same time? How do we survive? That's why it's important, Ricky. To answer your question. That is why it's important to me.
I mean, everything that you talk about, we sort of, we brush past.
Yes.
Because especially with what we're trying to do as a people, we're trying to recover.
Salute.
We're trying to recover from that pain that you're talking about and that struggle. We are trying to pretend like it's not there anymore. Like there's nothing. It's gone. Now we have to move forward. The only way we can survive as people and not cry every day when you wake up or cry yourself to sleep is by trying to block it out.
Ignore it.
But you recorded an album and, I sat with your album for, I think, a good month before I actually, gave you a buzz or anything like that. Or I might have called you when I was listening to the intro, but...
Yes, that's when you...
from the intro of an album, you can always tell what type of burden someone is about to carry. Right? From the jump, are you creating that parallel between you and what POC and them had to go through? Are you creating a parallel between you and the kid in Mitchell's Plain that's still, still having to deal with real life issues?
Yeah.
Youngsta can take a flight to Joburg and, do a couple of shows, meet with famous people, shooting videos all day, do shows all around the world. But are you consciously creating a parallel with the story of that lighty that's still in Mitchell's Plain, trying to decide what direction to take with his life? Yes. Because it's very easy for you to do. When I see you do those, when I see you do like these, I put you in two boxes. Like you have this, the fun box. Basketball jersey youngster is a different one.
Hey, salute.
Throwback jersey youngster is a different one. He's the one who's gonna hit you with the palm trees at the back.
Salute.
But when you dropped your album, that was a different youngster.
Yeah.
That was a different youngster.
And I kind of wanted to do that. Yeah, that was purposefully. That was intentionally, POC was a definite, I can say, inspiration when I was creating. And the album took long to make also, bro. Like maybe 5 years, 4 years in total. I'm just gathering all the recordings of my grandfather and trying to also sift through them and find the best information that would relate to the song in question. But for me, the main thing that I was trying to do was to honor and kind of highlight the story of colored people and what they've endured by going back to the root, which was my grandfather. I could have went to any other relatives, but he's the last one left, more or less. So growing up, he always spoke very openly, and very raw, blunt. He just said things, and I'm sure your grandparents, so you know how these old people that come from that time, they have no filter. And he said these things, and then I'd maybe go home and listen to a rap song, and I'd maybe hear some of what he's saying in a rap song, and then maybe I'd watch a movie, whether it be Boys in the Hood, or whether it be Into Deep, or whether it be Barbershop, whatever, and they're having these discussions. It's Ice Cube, Cedric Entertainer, they're talking about the history, they're talking about black culture, they're talking about slavery, police brutality. And some of these things I'm hearing on rap, but some of it I'm also hearing from an actual member of my family, And I felt like, okay, so there is some sort of a link here. And the main link that I realized is just that the oppressed, no matter where they are in the world, they're not white. Oppressed people are not white. From what I've seen, from what I've experienced and learned. So I felt like, if hip-hop is always going to be the same narrative, more or less, and it's going to be told by the same people, more or less, because they're always going to come from the hood. Most rappers is going to come from some sort of difficulty. It's never a silver spoon story. And even the rappers that have silver spoons don't want to tell the silver spoon story. They want to tell the hard story. So they might surround themselves with guys that can maybe accommodate for that life, so they can say, you know what, even though maybe I didn't live it, I participate in it with these guys now. I help these guys to escape that life, or I do this so that they don't have to live that life anymore. But when speaking to my grandfather, I realized like this story is identical to about, I don't know what, half the black people in the world, not South Africa, the world. This story that he's explaining to me, that he experienced in the 50s and the 60s, and 70s, this is the same thing that every black person has gone through. So it's important for me to highlight his struggle, because if I don't, people are going to be unaware of it, And like you say, throwback jersey youngster is different. I feel like when I did this, I had to put on my thinking cap. I had to put on my salat top. I had to put on my kufia. And I had to take them to mosque. I had to take them to the pavement. I had to take them to the flats. I had to take them to what it was like for these people to stand in District 6 and watch their house get demolished in front of them, and they have an hour to clear out their belongings. My grandmother was there. My grandfather was there. My mother was there. Reddy D was born there and lived there also. History could have been totally different for these people. Totally. There could have been a completely different story about Cape Town. The reason why black people don't like Cape Town is because it's dominated by white rule. Why is it dominated by white rule? Because it is the point of entry into Africa as far as colonization is concerned and slavery. That is why Cape Town is so rife in its racism. You can feel it almost, especially if you're not from there. It's easy for you to pick it up because you're an outsider coming in, you know. And for me to come to Joburg, it's easy for me to see the brotherhood almost. I know everybody fights, no doubt. We don't all get along, but I can see the collaboration. I can see the participation that everyone puts in. And now I see the outcome of it, you know. So for me, with this album, what I was trying to do is just tell a story that would never have ever been told had I not taken that responsibility upon myself. Because like you said, I had to throw back Youngster School, but I had to take that throwback off now. I had to put on my own clothes. I couldn't wear the throwback jerseys of the basketball team I've never seen play. And I don't even follow basketball really. I just like the look of it. I like the image, you know, because of hip hop. Hip hop taught me that. So I just felt like the direction of the album had to be something serious because it was my first album also, and I couldn't hold back. And even though I did kind of in terms of like certain things maybe that I felt like, okay, this song shouldn't be on you, or maybe the song can wait a little bit. If you look at songs like Crazy Arabian or 786, 786 translates to Bismillah Rahman Rahim. When I get buried one day, 786 is going to go on my gravestone. On every Muslim's gravestone, it first says 786, and then the name, date of birth, and the date of your demise. So these are things that you wouldn't know. These are things that people in Africa maybe don't know. These are things maybe people in South Africa don't even know. My own neighbors maybe don't even know this, you know? And like I say, this canvas of hip-hop is so big and so colorful already. What's it missing? What is the only thing that's not on this canvas yet? What has someone not painted a picture of yet? And I felt like, I don't see no 786 on that picture. I don't see no Crazy Arabians on that picture. I don't see no one talking about Van Riebeeck, since he's the main fucker of all this. Since he's the creator of all this trauma and pain that we experience, I don't see no one talking about that. But if Kanye West do Run Away With Me, or he does something about like black slavery in America, a video of it, a visual of it, it's hailed, it's praised. If you watch 12 Years a Slave, it wins Oscars. If you watch The Butler of Forrest Whitaker, you know, it gets praised.
Where did the disconnect happen? I think, you know, maybe it was always there, but we still are trying to also figure out, and maybe you can help us. What is the actual definition of colored? A colored, like what's the actual definition? Because we, like me as being a black guy, I see anyone who's like mixed.
Yes, colored.
Is colored. So
indeed,
sometimes when you are talking about some of the things you talk about, a lot of people aren't understanding because they are just looking at it from here. They're sort of not, they don't have an understanding of the heritage and the history that you are talking about.
I mean, bro, you speak like that, but the sad thing is that colored people don't even know their heritage. You know? That's the struggle first. It's not to educate black or white about color, it's to educate colored about colored. Because they don't know. That's why they kill each other. Got the highest murder rate. Highest murder rates from Cape Town, bro. Gangs, where do they exist? Where do they come from? In South Africa. You can say what you want about the other places, bro. Yeah, I mean, the number is, it's South African, it's everywhere. It's in every prison that you get in South Africa. But gangs, systematic gangsterism, hierarchy in gangsterism, ranking in gangsterism, street gangs with names and flags and codes, comes from Cape Town. But the greatest participants in gangsterism is who? It's not black guys. It's colored guys, you know? There's one of them calling us now, bro. He's letting me know. Hey, Young, you talking this shit, man.
That's Big Zulu.
Hold on, baby. Hey, Big Zulu. Salute to that man. And I like that he also represents like firmly who he is. Down to the image, bro. You're not going to see Big Zulu in a pair of Jordan 4s. And even if he does wear it, he does it with a Zulu flair. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that. So that is what I'm saying about like colored people don't have that. Their identity is still being, I can say, the identity is being identified still by them. It is still being dissected. It is still being discussed. It must still be taught. Because, I mean, like you're saying, you're unaware, you don't know. I didn't know till a few years ago. And so I thought I need to... No, it's all good, bro.
What's going on? Please, guys. Huh?
It's been happening to me all week. I've been in Joburg a few days now. I did three or four interviews Every interview I did, there was a malfunction.
Something's going wrong.
Either the audio or the visual. And this is when I realized, like, what I'm bringing, what I'm saying, what I'm discussing, the frequency of it is high. You know, like you say, some people might not understand this, so now I have to break down history. What other rapper are you asking to break down history that comes here? I mean, maybe not many. You know, maybe not many. So back to the history. So because these people have not been taught who and what they are or where they come from. I mean, goddamn, even their surnames are not theirs, bro. Some of their surnames is November, September, April, and I don't know why it's that. Their families were brought into the country in a certain year as slaves, and their surnames were taken away from them and just named after whatever month they arrived here on a ship. That's it. You can't expect these people to understand who they are when they don't even know what their goddamn name is. You know, so this is the fight. This is the battle. Like I say, we'll get to the black people, we'll get to the white people. We'll eventually be able to just summarize all of this colored shit into like 3 sentences. But for now, the journey is endless. The learning, the seeking of knowledge, we're still trying to figure this thing out, bro. Last week, I shot a music video at the District 6 Museum. This museum is in danger of being closed. Why? Because of lockdown, COVID, no tourism, no foreign currency, no foreign exchange coming in, no more spending of that kind of rate and frequency and consistency. So now we're not making money. A museum that speaks about the robbery of land and the eviction of people based on their skin color, that museum is threatened to be closed because they're not making money due to foreign income. So the white people are not going to the museum anymore to read the story of how their ancestors threw these people out of the best part of Cape Town. And because that's not happening, the museum has to close, meaning we as colored people and black people are not woke enough to keep this place open. I asked my mother, have you ever been to the 36 Museum? She said no. I asked about 30 other people after that, of various ages, have you ever been to the museum? They said no. And it ranged from young to old. It wasn't just like my mother's age bracket. It was young people as well as older than my mother who's never ever been to the 36 Museum. And that is, I mean, the first people that were removed from 36 were all black. All black, my man. And they were first moved like just on the outskirts of Maitland and in Ndabeni. And then Langa was built away from that, further away. And then they said, you know why you guys can't stay here in Ndabeni anymore? Because, hey, there's a virus that's coming. The virus is making people sick. And you guys are going to get infected if you stay here. So we're going to move you to another place. And then that's where you guys are going to stay. And they never left there since. Langa is one of the worst townships in Cape Town, just in terms of crime and poverty and so forth, and those who exist below the breadline. So for me to explain colored, it's a very, very difficult task to diarize. That's why I let my grandfather do it, because I didn't want to take on that responsibility. It's too big for me. I'm only 28 years old. I was born into this. I did not, see it from the jump. And I know he did, because he was alive before there was, the Group Areas Act, or before there was apartheid even. But he's been treated unequally since birth, basically. But for me, I mean, this is my definition of colored, if I were to give one at all. And bear in mind, this is only from my teachings and my learnings that I've been going through for the last few years. But one of the easiest ways I can explain it is that black culture has never ever owned or claimed that they are descendants of Khoisan or Bushman or Griquas or Cape Malays. So why is that? If black and colored is the same thing, which is the debate most of the time I see online, because people are saying, there's no such thing as colored, bro. It's black, everything's black, which I can understand. I mean, I got colored friends who's half black, half colored, but they look more black than colored. But they grew up in colored areas, they went to colored schools, they had colored girlfriends, so in their mind, their existence has been a colored one all this time. But black people don't identify with the Khoisan tribe or the Bushman tribe or the Griquas because they don't consider the tribe of the black race or black culture. So that's the easiest way to explain it. Colored people are descendants of the Bushman, the Khoisan, Griquas, and Cape Malays. That's it. That's all they are. They're just descendants of that. The problem is their name was changed. they weren't allowed to keep those titles, those tribal titles. They weren't allowed to keep, well, I don't even know if they had a choice, if they were given an option even, you know, but they were classed. When the classism took place in the ID and the Dompas and so forth, that is when everything changed. So the word colored is only about 50 years old.
So that's why it feels like a foreign concept.
That's why it feels foreign to everyone, because it's not something that is a part of us really. It was introduced only in the time of apartheid and slavery, when classism became a thing, and when classism was like the order of the day, and you had to group these people so that you could keep track of them, you know, and monitor their behavior and monitor what they do and where they are and what they, you know, take part in, whether it be working, whether they're trying to send the children to school, whether it's crime, whatever the case may be. We need to keep track of these people. We need to keep order of them, you know, almost like stock that you have in a store. So we all got numbers, we all got surnames, we were all given the pass. You know, we were all told like when to be in the house, the restrictions where you can go, non-whites here, non-blacks there, blah, 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 and so forth. So that's the easiest way I can explain the definition of color. They are descendants of various tribes, being the Busman, the Khoi, the Griquas, and the Cape Malays. The Malays is brought into this country. They were the only ones not from here. You know, but the reason why they were just classed as colored also is because the skin color was the same as Griquas and as the Busman. You know, so it was easy to just say, okay, all these guys are colored because they all look the same, more or less. You know, they don't look as dark as these guys, and they're not as light as these guys. So we have to call them something else, you know. And I mean, sorry to cut you, but from what I saw in certain history books, when the Dutch arrived here, the British was already here. So the Dutch and the British fought over South Africa. It wasn't like it was handed over. You know, there was a fight that ensued between the two of them.
For sure.
And when they came here to our shores of Cape Town, they found people there already. They found civilization there already. You know, these people had systems. They had farming, crops, cattle, you know, and to a certain extent they were fine in certain ways. And I even read things like certain accessories that they had already at the time that they were using to cultivate land. Certain things that they had that the white man had never seen before. You know, the way, I mean, I speak about this in the song of Casper. And shout out to Casper also for like, how you can say, giving me a theme almost to speak about. He told me, I want you to speak about what colored people have been through. I want you to speak about the colored condition. I want you to speak about the struggle of colored people, because I don't think people know that. You know, and he gave me that verse. Or when I heard it on the album, I was like, okay, I see what you did here. He killed the drums completely. And some people was like, why did he do that? But he was probably scared. He didn't want you to kill the beat. Or so I'm like, nah, he wanted you to hear. He wanted you to pay attention and to listen to what I'm saying. Listen
to what this man is saying.
And I broke it down more or less in that verse where I said the only thing that caused us to surrender was the gun, baby. We ain't never seen no guns. At that point, we knew spears and sticks and shields and stones and shit. When the gun came into the picture and it was held by a white man, pointed at us, that is when everything changed. That's when the battle was lost. Apparently there was a battle that ensued 100 years before Van Riebeeck came. So Van Riebeeck came in 1652. Then I think in 1510, there's actually a battle that took place. First, when settlers arrived as well, European settlers, and they lost. What happened was, and this is a story I was told by Emil of Black Noise, you know Emil with the Afro, so also a heavy hip-hop activist. He put in a lot of work for this game that we're in now, bro. And
he's basically considered the father of b-boying and hip-hop, huh?
Can be, bro. Definitely can be. And he's a qualified teacher. Qualified. Got the degree, he's got the doctorates, everything, bro. So he knows what he's talking about. And my first school tour I ever did, because you see, I carried on doing the school tours. People thought it was my idea. It was actually his idea. I mean, when I was in school, Emil came to my school and showed us the 6-step b-boy classes. You know what I mean? Like things like that. And he told me about this battle that took place 100 years before Van Riebeeck even got here. And to make a long story longer, the settlers got off the ship. They saw this whole setup. They met with people at the shoreline. And these people were so accommodating. The people took them back to their village, showed them everything they were doing in the village. And these settlers were like blown away. They were like, shit, these motherfuckers got it together. There's a system here. There's an ecosystem here. And they were like, wow, we need to come back here. We need to study these people. We need to find out how they achieved this without like any modern education, any English, any resource, and any money. There was no currency also. You know, it was exchange, goods and service, the bartering system at that time.
And with no Europeans.
And with no Europeans, no white men in sight. So what they tried to do was, and this is what Emil told me, they tried to kidnap one of these kids, one of these black kids, and these kids in the village, and to take him back to Europe just to, I mean, you know what it was like for slaves. I mean, we've seen so many movies about, we've read about it so many times. So it's like, we kind of know the strategy that goes on, you know. So, I mean, maybe it was for experimental purposes. Maybe it was just, you know, being evil or whatever the case may be. But this kid was in danger of being kidnapped. And when he screamed and obviously made a scene that, hey, these guys are trying to take me, some of the dudes in the village heard, and, you know, they came to his rescue and came to his aid. And this is when the battle ensued on the shoreline. And they lost. The Europeans lost. The settlers lost. You know. But this is the one they don't tell us about. They don't tell us about this battle in no textbook. When you Google it, they might not even show it. You know. So my only reason that I could, make rational about why they wouldn't want us to understand this, because if they knew what power we had, or if we knew what power we had, let's say, that might make us an unstoppable force. It might make us decide, hey, we should never turn the other cheek ever again. Hey, we should burn shit down from now on more often, because that's when they pay attention, you know? So then if you look at it 100 years later, the Dutch shows up and they armed. Guns blazing, enslave you. Righto, here we go. Okay, we're starting with the children and the women. Come. We're going to take over this place. Because they came 100 years before, so they know what they were up against. They knew, hey, these people got the system, yeah? You know? These people are cultivating. You know, they're kind of civilized also. They're not savages. You know, so, hey, we have to be smart with them. So what do we have that they don't? They didn't see no weapons, really, when they came 100 years before. So they knew how to come the second time around. And these stories that I'm talking about now, like, it might go on and seem like I'm babbling or whatever the case may be, but these are the stories that shapes this place that we live in. And first and foremost, it shaped the place that I was born in. So when people ask me why I do certain things, why I say certain things, why my aim is a certain direction, it's just because I can't turn a blind eye to this. I can't.
Do you not ever get afraid that certain elements will try block you from speaking, or they'll suppress your music or suppress your message because you speak such a, you know, hard-hitting, vivid story, and so much truth comes out that, you know, these are the things we have to go back and research. Like you said, you're not going to find it on Google. Yeah. You have to go back and research. You're going to have to ask your grandfather.
Indeed.
And if you have your great-great, you ask them, you know, what they know about their history. But do you never get afraid that, you know, these might be a reason for anyone to try suppress your message? Because a YoungstaCPT is the dopest MC we have in South Africa, if not one of them. But for some reason, there always seems to be a resistance.
Yeah.
There's always a resistance. I don't know if that's something that you think about, or even, you know, I know you're not much of a victim, you know, you don't play victim, but there's always this resistance
against
to a YoungstaCPT. Is that because of you've chosen to, you know, speak on this narrative, or do you think it's for any other reason?
I think it's one of the reasons. I don't think it's the only reason, but I mean, it's a decision I made consciously. Like I said, I did it on purpose, all of it. Having a 7-minute intro on the album was totally uncalled for. But it's necessary. For me at this point, like, we spoke at the beginning. I'm not sure if you were recording it or if it was on air or whatever, but...
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so it was documented. Where I said, like, are you willing to die for freedom? Are you willing to go up against everything you know? Are you willing to take the road less traveled? When everyone swims mainstream, are you willing to swim upstream, away from everything? That's what I mean. It brings me back to the original point of this discussion at the beginning when I asked the lighties, are you willing to put your life down for this? Because that's what it is for me. I'm willing to do that shit. I was given a microphone and a stage. And they told me you can say whatever you want. And in the beginning, I did say whatever I wanted. But when I realized how many children are listening to me, that is when things in my mind started to shift. And I was like, damn, when I was this age, what was I listening to? What message did they have? What did I take from that messages? Did I use it in my life? Did it benefit me? Did I become a better man because of listening to rap music? Did I become smarter listening to rap music? Did I become more stekelfree? Did I become more brave? You know, did I become more arrogant because I listened to rap music? Or was I more chauvinistic because I listened to rap music? Bitches ain't shit. How did it shape me? How did it change me? And then I started taking stock of what all these rappers influenced me to do. Because, I mean, I don't think they knew that the light in fucking Witeboom was listening to them. you know, I don't think they knew that I was listening and living my life by these principles and trying to get the NBA throwback that didn't, come to my country yet, or new era caps that didn't come to the hood yet. I don't think they knew that existed in me down there in Kaapstad. They didn't know. So now let's fast forward. That kid that he wanted all those things, he's now the guy. He's the rapper. He's been influenced by all that shit, and now it's his turn to, give his offering. So what's he gonna give? How is he gonna change it? How is he gonna make a difference? How is he gonna make an impact, this little motherfucker that, has been influenced by this American culture for the last 20 years of his life? How is he going to change it? How is he gonna make something better? Or, add something to it that hasn't been added before, like I said about that canvas. And the only way I could think of to differentiate myself was to speak about something that nobody else was talking about. And when I came down to the raw elements of it, I was like, no one is addressing slavery in this country, which is crazy because we're still slaves. Like you said, we think if we turn a blind eye to the shit that it's not happening. Bro, it's probably even more visible now than it was like 20 years ago in our grandparents' time. How many times do you get maybe sent a video on WhatsApp or maybe you on Twitter just scrolling and they're like, hey, crime in Joburg. And then it's like this video of a bra slutting a window in and running away with the bag. Or like a group on Facebook where they just upload all these videos of, hey, be careful when you're at this robot, or hey, don't drive in that intersection. There's all these like documentations about how bad South Africa has gotten. And like you say, we don't want to wake up in the morning crying and depressed and sad and shit. So yes, I mean, we can't constantly be switched onto this reality forever. We have to also try and find the positive and the silver lining, and we have to get money, and we have to stand on the couch and pop the bottle. I get it, man, bro. I know. But a lot of that we have adopted from the Western world. If we look at our own backyard and what's happening in it, we as the rappers, we are the ones that do the social commentary on what's going on in our backyard.
Yeah.
So this shit was going on in my backyard, bro. I'm not from Joburg. I'm not from Durban. I'm not from PE. Had I come from those places, my music would have sounded different. Definitely. 100%. Had I left Cape Town and moved to Joburg in maybe 2011 or something, my music would sound completely different, bro. I might still have the Cape Town in me, but would I want to delve into topics like this and talk about this kind of shit? Probably not. It probably wouldn't matter to me that much. It might affect me, but not that much.
There was something interesting that Akon said. I don't know if there's this interview you saw that he did with Vlad. He said that Africans are past slavery. Africans don't talk about slavery. They don't deal with slavery anymore. He said Africans are past slavery, while African Americans
are just getting introduced more or less. Yeah,
they're still very much trying to actually answer what the hell happened. Why do you think Africans sort of are trying to avoid, the results of colonization and why are we trying to avoid oppression so bad? Like you speak about EFF. EFF might be the only, whether you agree or disagree with their methods or anything, it might be the only party that's actively, addressing it.
Salute.
Day out.
They're
actively addressing that.
No
and
doubt.
Why do you think we aren't as active in trying to, confront that story or that part of our history? I mean, even apartheid. I mean, even if when you say apartheid, it's like it's a bad word,
Yeah, maybe this is our reality. I'll put it to you this way: when we watched A Menace to Society or New Jersey Drive, or whatever movie came out about the hood in the 90s, New Jack City, all these
Boys in the Hood,
all these movies based on like the black disadvantaged areas and the stories that come out of them. If we go there now in 2020 to those same places and those same locations where those movies were made,
it's the same shit.
It's the same shit, no doubt, but there's been an improvement in some way or another. Brooklyn don't look the same no more.
You calling that an improvement though? Or are you saying that?
I'm saying that they found a way to at least come out of that hole in some way or another. There has been some sort of an upliftment to those communities. Whether it got gentrified, salute, we don't like that kind of shit as well. But at the same time, it's not like it was in the 90s. It's not like it was in the 80s.
For sure.
The Marcy Projects is not the same like it was when Jay-Z was selling crack there.
For sure.
It's not the same like when Biggie was in Bed-Stuy. Bed-Stuy not the same way anymore.
For sure.
Like I say, the elements exist, but there has been some sort of improvement since then till now. It's better. A little bit. Even if it's just 10% better. Fuck, bro. It's just a little better for these people. So certain realities don't exist there anymore. I mean, maybe it's worse now with police brutality, no doubt. But fuck, they killed Rodney King. I mean, well, they didn't kill him, sorry, they moved him on camera. But that shit happened in 1994 or 92 or whenever it was. So at the same time, it was happening then. It's kind of happening now still. But in terms of their landscape, in terms of their housing, in terms of maybe water, electricity, so on and so forth, it got better. Maybe things were never as bad even in that regard. But I know that their neighborhoods maybe got maybe a little bit safer, or maybe it improved in terms of, the education or health, maybe more hospitals opened, or maybe schools got better. They had more public parks for the kids to play and shit. I don't know, but I never been to these places. Like I say, I'm just basing it on what I see on the internet, what I read about,
see on the news
and what
TV.
I see on the news. Maybe it looks like things improved. I follow rappers on Instagram and they be saying in Brooklyn, they're like, hey, this shit ain't the same no more, man. We used to hustle on these streets. And they're saying like now it's not like that. Now motherfuckers are driving bikes, getting coffees, cycling and shit, shooting little podcasts in the street, and it's safe. You try and come shoot that shit there in a car seat, even in Joburg, and you see what happens to you. It's not gonna be a sweet ride. And why is that? Because the reality is still the same, baby. The reality hasn't changed. You look at the picture of Menenberg from the 80s, look at the picture of Menenberg now. What's the difference?
It's the same shit.
It's exactly the same, baby. Look at the picture of Langa then, look at the picture of Langa now. It's exactly the same. Actually, it might be worse.
Now there's more people.
There's more gangsters. There's more guns. There's more drugs. So why on earth would you try and sell that to the very people that come from that and live in that shit every single day? It doesn't make sense. Economically, financially, it doesn't make sense to try and sell them the same life that they open the window and look at and hide from every day. Why would that work? And I think that is why these topics have been overlooked, because it's still our reality. It hasn't gotten better for us, unfortunately. It's not something that I'm proud of saying like, oh yeah, now we still live in hardcore and what, but I wish it wasn't like that, because then I'd have a totally different subject matter on my plate. I
mean, it's the same. I mean, if any hood you drive through or go to or visit to, we drove through Khayelitsha the other day. We were going to
Rens,
right? But we decided to go a bit early. We wanted to go during the day. And, like, they always show you that vision of Brazil, the favelas. And they're going to tell you, like, the favelas are, like, the worst. Like, it's the worst of the worst, right? Just because the houses are on top of each other and it's on a hill, right? And everyone is like, those favelas,
They've never been to Angberg before, in Oudtshoorn.
It's a condition you wouldn't expect anyone to have to live in.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect, Alex to be right next to Sandton, the richest square mile in Africa. And for people to still have to struggle to get running water, for people to have to struggle to get electricity, to have to steal electricity.
That is our reality, bro. That's
South
Africa.
We're still there.
We're still there. So how are these people actually going to take money out of their pocket and buy something that is outside for free? You want to sell me the street life for what? I'll just walk to the shop. That's the street life. It's still the same. The reason why it maybe works better in America is because they've kind of removed themselves out of the poverty-stricken economic side of things. You know, their businesses now are like 10 years old, 15 years old. So the money that's being generated there is starting to become old money. Whereas now, I think we like the first generation to actually open our own businesses. We might be the first. My mother never opened no business. My grandfather never opened no business. So I know that I'm the first in my family to do it. I'm the first generation like me.
And you're the first generation that has to do it.
That has to do it. And also I have the opportunity to do it because they didn't have no chance, you know? So things like that, I think, is what separates a place like Africa from a place like America. America has at least found its way up the hill. And yes, it's a difficult climb. It's not easy to climb a summit, bro. But at least you can see kind of the other side of the peak. You can see what's on the other side. I don't know where that leaves us, bro. I'm not sure where that puts us. But one thing I will say is that we are resilient people because of these hardships, because of all these obstacles, because of all these barriers that blocked us over the years. It made us stronger. So now when we get to positions of comfort, we're still not comfortable. We're like, I have to go harder. I have to do more. I have to be better. Because all your life, that has been your circumstance. That has been your fight always to prove yourself and prove that you are worthy or prove that you are better. So I just feel like in South Africa, it's easy to overlook these things because it's a normality. We're numb to this shit. We read about women getting raped and hung in trees, and it's a normal thing. There's a girl that got abducted in Claremont. That's a white area in Cape Town, bro. She got abducted next to a police station. If that's our reality, we have a long way to go, my brother. They abducted a girl outside a police station in a white area. So what does that mean for the Kasi? What does that mean for the Cape Flats? This is the reality, bro. That's why I speak about it. If rap was supposed to be based on the world and how it is, that's my world. That's how it is. They abducted the girl maybe 10 minutes away from my house, bro. So it means that even if I'm going to live in an area that's maybe a bit better or whatever, my reality is still that, hey, I must tell my mother to be careful when she goes to the shop. Or I must tell her to look out for herself, or must buy a pepper spray and put it in a bag and say, just learn how to use this thing and be quick with it even. Attach it to somewhere where you can grab it for us. We're going through these techniques on how to safeguard ourselves. And I'm a son. It's not my job to tell her this, but the world that we're living in now, the reality of it, where we from, in the environment we exist in of South Africa and Africa, is to now equip ourselves with survival tactics even more than before.
I've been introducing my wife to shooting.
Okay.
But we're split because on one hand, we don't want to be gun owners.
Salute.
We don't want to be people who are carrying guns because we know the violence that comes from guns, right? But at what point do you say you're going to have to sacrifice that value that you have to not have a weapon, a deadly weapon on you, and protect yourself in South Africa, especially in Joburg?
Yeah.
You know, you can move into a gated community here in the middle of Kailami or the middle of Sandton and you think you're protected, but these guys are pulling up straight at your gate. As soon as you're trying to come through, there's no escaping. Shopping mall, there's no escaping. In your house, there's no escaping. So where do we draw that line between like trying to protect ourselves with what you're being attacked with, or just letting God handle it, you know? That's where we are. We're like, fuck, do we just let God handle it, or do we actually also arm up? You know, do we arm up and try fight back? Is that something that's ever worked in especially in Mitchell's Plain or anything like that? Is it like, has that ever worked where people have decided, fuck, we need to protect ourselves instead of waiting for these police to come protect us, or we're not going to wait for these armies to come protect us? Or what's the story?
I read a headline that was on a lamppost recently during at the beginning of lockdown. I think it was stage 5 or level 5, whatever the fuck they call it. And they interviewed one of the gangsters and he was like, yeah, we're not afraid of the army, bro. We've had the same weapons as the army for years. They buying their weapons from the authorities. You know, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all a flows. We call it the flows in Cape Town when you try and flow somebody, you know. So at the end of the day, they're sending in a trained force to almost subdue civilians. So that means that we must have some sort of power in that regard if they're sending these guys who are tactically trained to fight against, you know, nations, just to come make sure that we stay in order and we keep in line. You know, so it lets me know that, okay, now there is a level of fear that the system has for us as the individuals that are being governed. They fear us because they know what power we have. But what they also don't understand is that even we fear us. Just because I grew up with this man all the years and he's a gangster, it doesn't make it safe for me to associate myself with him every day or hang out with him every day or try and be buddy-buddy with him. It's dangerous for me also because his lifestyle is different to mine. His fundamentals is different to mine. His code, number one, is different to mine. So what I base as friendship, he might see it as opportunity, you know? So to answer your question, bro, I'm not sure if, you know, you should just rely on, you know, God's protection. Yes, of course, say your prayers at night and at all times have the faith that there is an Almighty and that you do not own this world and eventually you will lay in the sand. You will lay in soil. Always walk around with that. But they say God helps those who help themselves. So the situations I got in already where I was by myself. There was no entourage with me. There was no team with me. And I had to defend myself. So because those things happen, I realized after that, hey, maybe I should arm myself. Maybe I should protect myself. Maybe I should take precautions in certain occasions, you know, or when I'm by myself or when I'm doing my exercises or when I'm, you know, not with the crew or when I'm just going quickly to the store by myself, you know. So I also had to learn my lesson the hard way. But once you learn that lesson, then now you have to work smarter. You have to be a bit more wise. You have to be a bit more vigilant now. Those things happen to teach us what now we mustn't do, you know.
As a rapper, I was always fascinated, like, how did Youngsta not try to milk the dark side? You know, like you say, a lot of rappers want to come through with a hardcore image. They want to come through, you know, with that street cred. Street cred is so important, you know. And I think anybody in sort of your position actually coming from Cape Town was going to try to milk, you know, gang life,
like the
gang violence, the way that the Anvo did it. They milked it the whole way and made, like, you know, millions off of that.
In front of us.
In front of our faces.
And no one called that culture appropriation.
Nobody did.
Because they don't know the culture that they're stealing from.
So with you, was there never any temptation to say, let me use some of that also?
I can't.
And maybe people will relate. People that aren't from South Africa, they'll relate with this story and they'll look, their eyes will come towards me.
I can't. I don't have the right. Because it's not a act for me. It's not a script. It's not a character that I can just portray at any moment and then, you know, I go back home and then I'm a different guy. I don't have the right as a colored man to speak on things that I'm not a part of. Well, this is how I understand gangsterism from growing up. Like, there's guys who's really going 100% in, and once you go 100% in, that is your life. That is your life. That's your child's life, your wife's life, your grandmother's life. That is everyone's life because of you. And when you in, bro. There's one man that rapped about gangsterism. He's the only man to ever do it. He's a 28. He's the only man to ever do it. I think his movie is still on Netflix. It's called The Lucky Man. Let's watch it. I think it's still on Netflix. And he's the only man that almost got away with rapping about the actual gang life, prison life, and what it includes and what it entails. And he rapped it in Afrikaans and in slang. Okay? And this was many years ago. I think it's early 2000s maybe. This is when he came out of jail. and he basically always had dreams of being an artist. So when he came out of jail, he had enough power, he had enough krach, he had enough reputation to do this shit. Many guys were against it because it's a code of silence and secrecy. It's not supposed to be exploited. It's not supposed to be publicized, really. Not really. So the reason I won't do it is because I didn't go 100% in. So what must I rap about? 60%. No one gives a fuck about 60. We want to hear that real shit. We want to hear your life, if that is your life. So that's why I never fully, how you can say, dived into that in terms of my character. Just because I know that my involvement in that was very minimal. And it was something I never wanted to really do when I discovered what it comes with. When I realized what I have to do to be that motherfucker, I was like, okay, nah, shit, I can't do this.
I'm gonna focus on this music right here.
Yeah. I mean, the music was always my focus from age 6. But because I got so many influences around me that have no knowledge of what it takes to create music or the art behind it, or they think it's just a song on the radio, and the discouragement behind you wanting to do it, it's like, maybe it's not for me. Maybe they're right. Maybe it's not going to work. Yeah, maybe this thing is only for black guys. Because in my hood, my nickname was nigger.
Just because you rapped?
Because I rapped and because I wore baggy clothes. If anything passed my elbow, yeah, you a nigger. So my nickname was nigger. For many years in Wynberg, they used to call me nigger. Or my brasa.
I don't know whether to laugh or to...
It's not even a sad thing. I loved it. My nickname was nigger. Anyone who knew me from years of like my young life, they will know. Yeah, that is nigger. That's what they used to call me in Wynberg. No cock. And that was the name, bro. That was the nickname that I had. I'll tell you something even better, Ricky. Do you know something even better? This is off the topic. And just run the marathon with me. Recently, during lockdown, we've had to become obviously more skilled, more resourceful, more tactful in what we do. And, throughout the course of this lockdown, because our time was obviously so spread out and, we were kind of bored also, we're not traveling anymore, we're not doing no shows, we started riding bikes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first bike that came to us was a hot bike. Okay. It was taken from someone who took it from someone who took it from someone and landed up in front of our door. And they sold it to us for next to nothing. So we bought the bike. And I think once the first person drove the bike, this fucking memories of your childhood and nostalgia came creeping back in, and everyone was like, oh shit, we want bikes now. Because, we have more time on our hands. And shit, when last did you ride a bike, Ricky?
Yeah.
Thank you. You're getting a Porsche now. You don't have time for no fucking bike. So for me, it was like, hey, this is fun. Because last time I had a bike, I was like 12 years old, bro. Yeah. And they stole that shit. So now I'm like, God damn, I get to ride a bike again. And I hadn't done it in years until I went to Europe. That was the first time I rode a bike. And that's bikes like
Amsterdam
cling away. You know what I mean? That's that.
It's a cute one.
It's a cute bike. There's a basket on it. You know what I mean? The tires are thin. It's one of those moments. And now it's like we're going back to our roots. BMX, baby. You know what I mean? Pegs. Giving your brother a lift on the fucking bike. Where one is in front or one is at the back. That's how we're doing it now. Or no pegs and one is just sitting on the fucking handlebars. That's how we're doing it now. So it's like all those memories just came up. And we started collecting bikes. Only BMX bikes and only secondhand. So none of it was bought out of a store. It all came off the street, And then we had this group of kids also that was constantly driving past on their bikes. And then we'd one day just make a joke like, hey, how much would you sell that bike for? And the kid was like, give me so much. And they started coming back every day, just bringing us bikes. All of these bikes is secondhand. Some of it is in shit condition. Some of it was okay.
But any bike they're bringing through now?
Nothing above 60%. Every bike is 60 and below. That's the bikes that we were buying. And then what we would do is we would basically reinvent these bikes. We'd give it life again. We'd give it a new paint job. We put brakes on. We put the tires on. We change the flywheel. We modify the chain even. So the chain maybe comes out gold as well. My brother's favorite color was gold. His chain became gold. He loves gold. He's gold member. So all these bikes then eventually had like a new identity. They got new faces.
Yeah.
And then we were like, wow, guys, now we all have a bike. Everybody got a goddamn bike now. It's like 13 of us. Everyone got a bike. Everyone got a BMX. This is in lockdown. So we're like, Ace, we should cycle around the block one day. And we started cycling around the block. Cycling around the block turned to cycling down the street. Cycling down the street turned to cycling to another area. Next thing you know, motherfuckers like, okay, we're going on a cycle, a real one. Let's do what the white people do. They've been doing this shit for years. We've been seeing groups of cyclists for years. Let's do it. Let's hit the streets. Let's cycle. Boom. And there we are. Sea Point, Camps Bay, Greenpoint, Strand, Clifton. All the places where, you see these big groups of cyclists. We went there with the BMXs. Okay, so it's a little bit new. It's a bit disruptive. But also you can see the difference because it's a BMX bike.
But you guys are driving there, or you're riding the bike all the way there?
So no. So we're pulling up there and cycling from there to another destination.
Yeah.
Wherever it may be. So maybe you're cycling from Sea Point to Clifton, and then maybe the next one they do is the Strand Beach. And then I remember one day we did the Cork Bay to Simonstown. So it was nice. And all like shoreline, beachline cruises, you know what I mean? Sometimes it even rains. You get these little days, Cape Town where there's 4 seasons in one. And by the way, Joburg is the goddamn same. There's also 4 seasons in Joburg, maybe, because it rains at night and it's hot in the day. But anyway, so we're doing our cycles. And it's actually working also for the fitness. You know what I mean? It's actually making us fit in the process, even though we're having fun. So one day, I'm cycling in Fishhoek. It's me and the Muffin Man. We are like the last ones in the pack now because there's a whole line of us. It's probably about 8-9 of us at this time. So me and Muffin Man was lost in the pack. But the boardwalk that we're cycling on in Fishhoek, there's a big sign that say there's no cycling. No cycling. Now you know. And
the Cape Town sign is different from a Joburg sign. Just for everyone to know. A Cape Town sign is a different sign.
And we're cycling in this motherfucker. So one of our compadres, a young lady, she gets a puncture. And the tire burst. Actually, the tire fucking exploded. So the tire burst and she has to pull over. Now, like I say, where we are, there's no cycling on this part of the fucking, section. There's no cycling here. So me and Muffin Man was the last ones in the pack. So we're like, hey, we can't leave her here. So, let's pull over, give it roadside assistance. Ain't got no goddamn toolkit. but we're going to give her some assistance and just hang back with her while we call the other guys and Ace, just make a U-turn quickly here for the lady.
Yeah.
So during this time, me and the Muffin Man is lost, like I say, and there's a lady coming on towards us while the tire explodes and this young girl is now trying to sort out the situation. So Muffin Man is now going ahead. And I'm almost telling him, yo, stop and come back because, so I'm shouting. But while I'm shouting, I see him talking to this lady. And this lady tries to push him off his bicycle, off the boardwalk, into the ocean. So there's the boardwalk, rocks, and water. Had Muffin fallen off the fucking bike, he might have busted his head at that fall, at like that height. Because he's still on the bike also. So she tries to push him. And I didn't know what was going on because I was obviously hanging back now because I'm assisting the lady. And I see like, oh shit, the fuck's going on? And I see Muffin exchanging words with her. And then he wants to carry on also. And then she's like grabbing him and said, this woman is walking by herself. Obviously there was a car in. Walking by herself. And she just had a dog with her. That's it. So she had no backup, bro. But she was willing to go to blows with this man for cycling on a no cycling space. So I'm like, shit, what the fuck's going on here? So I pull up, I wheel over to her, and Muffin drives it, and then she grabs me, and she tries to push me off the fucking bike. So here I am, I almost hit the rocks as well. So I'm like, hello lady, what's wrong with you? And she looks at me, here's your punchline, and she looked at me and says, hey you, you're a kafir. (2020). I was called a kafir. Amazing. It's the first time in my life. I'm 28 years old, bro. 28 years old. I've been called a lot of things. Never has someone called me that. And at that moment, I turn, I look at her, and I said, you know what you are? I said, you're a thief. And if you don't know what a thief is, then go do your research. And I get on the bike and I drive ahead. But at that moment, as I'm trying to drive ahead, there's another group of white people approaching. And they saw this whole turf go down, because I mean, I'm not speaking in the way that I'm discussing it now. It was obviously raised voices and screaming. And these white guys, they pull up on me. 3 of them. Maybe 2 aged between 30 and 40 and 1 old guy. Maybe it's his son's father taking a walk on the same boardwalk. And he looks at me, he's like, excuse me, but you know you're not allowed to cycle here. I look at him and tell him, Keki, do you know that this is not your land? So don't talk kak to me, man. I got on the bike and I drove away to go call them to help be with the bike, because she still at the puncture. You know what I mean? But that moment for me was so shocking. It was so eye-opening also. It's like, oh yeah, I know where I am now. I know I'm not at home now. And yet it's not that far from home. I can take a train there to that beach, to Fishhook Beach. You know, and I come home. I mean, look, they weren't even there. My brother wasn't there. Jerry was. It's just me and Muffin Man. So he's the only one that heard it. But when I told them the story, I mean, the first thing he told me was, "Why didn't you record it? Why didn't you alter? Why didn't you make a video? We could have had this on camera." Because that's what motherfuckers do nowadays. That's what everybody does. But at that moment, like I said, I was just so shocked, and I was just like taken aback, and I was reminded as to, oh yeah, this is South Africa. This is what it's like in South Africa for us. This is how we feel.
And lucky it's you, because anyone else, it would have been
lost it.
Almost traumatic, and they would have.
I mean, when I told my mother about it, she almost cried. Because in her world, that's a reality. That was a reality, sorry, like when she was now, growing up in life. She was confronted with words like that, and, her family and so forth. So they grew up in a time when that was, kind of the language that was spoken by certain groups of people, or people were labeled as that often. It was a frequent thing to hear maybe when people were being victimized, or, being insulted or being swore at, and they would end it with that word. So my mother, for her, it's like, yo, this bitch took you back to, you know what I mean? She took you back there to my time. She took you back to the 60s and the 70s. So I just feel like the surroundings, it contributes to who you are as a person. It must. Like we were speaking in the beginning about geographics. I mean, because you have so much outside influence, it kind of gave you that extra source that this other owns here in South Africa was lacking. You was on some shit that was ahead of them already, and they still had to get it. So for me, because my reality was that, not necessarily being called that, but I just mean because I'm growing up in a society where I'm seen as less already, and then even within the black race, once again, I'm seen also as an enemy, not as an ally. It's like, I mean, what can I say? What can I do? I just have to speak my truth. I have to spit my game as best I can. But also at the same time, I am one for improvement, bro. I am one for change. I am one for positivity. I am one to be optimistic. I'm not saying it's always going to be like this. The last thing my grandfather says on the album was, I believe it can change. A positive can become a negative can become a positive. The whitest lily emerges from the dirtiest mud. The dirtiest swamp produces the best lilies. So I think I'm an example of one of those lilies. I think that because I came out of, in some ways, I came out of mud and dirt, I took the nutrients of that. I took the soil of that. I took whatever food I could get out of it. I took whatever knowledge I could get out of it, whatever strength I could get out of that. And I harness it. And I turn it into energy, positive energy, and I release it as light. So that's why when you speak about the darkness, it's like, I know the dark is there. I lived in the dark. They're not going to call the antwoord a kaffe, bro.
No.
They can't. That's why I'm talking about that's a caricature. That's an act. I don't get to act. I have to live it. And even before I was called those things, I lived that life already. Like I said, I never went fully into it. I never wanted to, because I knew, okay, this is not a result I'm going to be happy with at the end of the day. I'm either going to end up in prison or I'm going to end up in the ground. And I had brasa that went both those routes at young ages. My friends started getting incarcerated when we were in grade 9 and grade 10. Then they started going to jail. I had friends that never went to high school at all, but I went to school. And when I was getting made fun of just for going to school, I already knew I was different. So seeing them kind of cut off their potential early in life made me never want to do that to myself. You know, and I just had my mother. I didn't have no, real male role models daily that could kind of warn me and protect me from these kinds of realities outside. I just had my mother, that's all. So I had to make the decision myself. Like I say, I was presented with it, but I knew that, hey, I don't want to die young, not too young. And I don't want to go to prison for the rest of my life and sit in the inside of a cell for however long it may be. So the reason why I don't try and sell that life is because I've seen it already. It's there. It's been there. And actually, it hasn't left me. Now that I'm in this position, I'm a spokesman for these people. I mean, I have to go to them. I have to go be in the communities. I have to shake their hand. I have to shoot music videos. I have to sign T-shirts. I have to go do school tours. I have to engage with them. So I'm never not going to witness that struggle. I'm never not going to witness the suffering because I've chosen to be the spokesman for that exact struggle and that exact story. So seeing that, it makes me sad. It hurts me. It depresses me sometimes. It breaks me down. So why would I want to try and put that on wax or put that on MP3 and then pretend that, yeah, I'm proud of this product? I don't want kids to become gangsters. I don't want ladies to be called kaffers anymore. I don't want that to happen in the world. So why would I continue to perpetuate that image and that cycle if I'm trying to actually give these ladies a new lane? Because I saw the old lane. I was there for the old lane. I saw what the old shit got us. Most of my brothers that I was coming with from childhood, they took that lane. I watched them. You know, EJ, a friend of mine, he recently got released from prison. And he was a rapper. He's a rapper, but I mean, he was actually active in the industry for about, you could say 5 years. A good 5 years. And he came up with Tweezy. He came up with MT as well. He lived in Yeovil, but he's from Cape Town. And he's from my neighborhood. And because he's Angolan and he grew up with colored guys, I think in order for him to fit into that group, same like a white boy. In order to prove to the colored guys you can chill with them, you have to do shit that's worse than them. You have to do shit as good or worse than them, And because he wanted to be accepted so badly by, this community that he was raised in, he did that shit. And he almost did it better than a colored bra. And he became almost worse than a colored bra. And then he went to prison at age 16 as an Angolan. No one knows that about him. When he started rapping, he spoke nothing of that in his music. Why? Because that's the old lane. You don't want to address it. You don't want to seem like you're glamorizing it or that you're trying to like romanticize with this thought of, yeah, I'm a G, I came from prison and what. His first song that came out, he spoke nothing of jail. He spoke about the aspirational life, good shit, champagne, bitches. He spoke nothing about going to prison. Then he came to Cape Town. I listened to his music. I said, how come you never told anyone that you were in jail? Because he was born and bred in Cape Town. He was moved to Joburg because he went to prison. He comes to Joburg. He gets incarcerated in Joburg. He goes to Sun City. And then Leeuwkop. From there, they send him back to Cape Town because they're like, shit, this motherfucker's not listening there either. He comes to Cape Town. I'm rapping. This is about 2012. I'm a rapper now. And so was he. The first songs he plays me has nothing to do with his life. It's all cosmetic. It's all, you know what I mean? It's all this fantasy world, this glitz and glamour. And I'm like, it's dope, but we were brothers from school, so I know you. I know what you did. I know who you are. I know you got that shit in you. So why are you rapping like this?
What do you say?
Maybe bro, they don't want to hear that shit on the radio, bro. I'm trying to get on the radio, dog. That was always his aim, to get on YFM, to get on Metro, to get on 5. And that's why I say the lane that we're trying to travel in is not the lane of self-destruction. We don't want to destroy ourselves anymore. He got released from prison 2 months ago. He was in jail now almost 2 years. Since 2018, he was in prison. I was speaking to him out through that time also, on and off. I was also kind of angry towards him because he wasted that, that talent, that opportunity.
Could have done something different.
Yeah, because he was nominated at SA Hip Hop Awards before me, and he performed at Back to the City before me. So those were things that me as a Cape Town artist was always trying to be a part of and just trying to get on the lineup or just trying to be a nominee. And he was there already because of his history he had with, Joburg artists. He had these networks, he had these connections, you know. So he actually managed to build that up in a time before social media could help you, and he did it, you know. And then when he came to Cape Town again, and he had his fallout with Too Easy, I think that also affected him heavily to the point where he thought, the shit is over, and I'm back in the cup. So let me just go back to the old lane. Let me just do what I was always known to do, and let me just like fall back into that pattern because I tried this. And it gets me closed doors. It gets me, you know, friends that kind of leave me behind. It gets me no rewards. I just get nominated. I never get the accolades. So I might as well just go back to doing what I was doing. He was angry. And, you know, he started destroying himself again. And that got him in prison again. And then he got incarcerated for the longest time of his life. And this brings me back to that point where I'm saying, like, even when he comes out now, yes, I mean, I've spoken to him. I've told him, like, hey, let's try and go deeper into your character. Let's give these people some of your background, because now you're going to be like, you know, you're going to be 30 soon. It's like, it's the perfect time. You came out, I mean, you got released from prison in lockdown. That shit is crazy. So
tell the story.
Yeah, so tell them what you experienced in these last years of your life, bro. And that brings me to that question, like, why didn't I promote the dark side more? It's because it's very dark. It's very, very dark. If I must promote it, then I must promote it 110%. I can't just give 30% that I'm used to. I have to give the whole 100%. And my experience in life, that 100% is a very unsafe number to give when it's a negative commentary that you're speaking on, you know? And
because even in places like the US, you see these guys getting involved in rapping about being Bloods and Crips, and
only after they start rapping.
Only after they start rapping, but they actually, that energy comes back into their real lives. You know?
It has to, because that's the world that you're speaking about. You're speaking about the world with real consequences and real effects. I'll put it to you this way. Me as a colored brother, I can't take off my sweater, have the tattoos, rap about gangster shit, and then when a gangster sees me and comes to question me on those things, I can't stand down.
Because he heard the song.
He heard the song. He saw the music video. He saw the tattoos. I have to be that guy then, because I said so on the song. So I didn't want that problems in my life. Fuck no. I had it already when I wasn't rapping. Just walking home from school was a goddamn problem. So I thought, oh, hell no. I'm not going to put this in my music. What I will do is speak on just what I know. Nothing else. Just what I know. And that's what I've done my whole career, bro. I've only spoken about the shit that I know. For the Antwoord, it's fine for him to have the tattoos and shit, because they know, this is kind of like a play. You know, it's like a stage production, like theater. You know, he's putting on the act, and when the curtains close, he gets to be himself again. He gets to go home to the mansion and shit like that. The colored brother that does it, it's seen as something more intense and more realistic, because you know that is his life. You know more guys like him exist, that look like him, that speak like him, that dress like this, and that have this image, and they are really those people. So if he does it on a microphone and with the tattoos, he must be one of them. He has to, because it's real. It's real. When the colored guy says your master poos, you feel it. You're like, hey, this is some real shit.
Yeah, you don't argue with
You don't argue. You know that something's about to go down after that words are spoken. When the Antwoord says it, you're entertained by it. It's enjoyable to watch. It's fascinating almost. Because you can't believe that a white guy could adopt this culture and do it so well. So you enjoy watching it. It makes, it makes for good TV. It makes it fun. So you're not threatened by it. When I say it, you feel threatened by it, because you know it comes from a real place. And that's the main reason why I did not want to sell that, because I knew it's already disadvantage just being the colored guy and having to call myself colored, because like I said, the word in itself is already incorrect. It's a slandering word, bro. You can't name a group of people that. So it's already bad that I am now speaking on behalf of that. Then I'm still a Muslim, bruh, and then I'm still from Cape Town. So had I now also done the gangster thing, it's too many crosses next to my name already, bro.
No winning
if I had to do that. So that's why I kind of chose to just speak truthfully about what it is I knew about that shit. Like if I take one of my most popular songs at the time, it was Salutas. Salute is prison language, the word specifically. Just that word. It belongs to a certain group of gangsters. Just that word. So the other groups don't say salute. They got another word. So salute is only used for this specific group of gangsters. But I mean, it's community, it's environment, it's becoming almost mainstream in this time I'm speaking of, you know. So for us, when we're hearing our brothers say salute at school, or when the O say salute us or salute ya, we were like, okay, nice. I mean, this is now, this is how we speak every day. You know, this is our agreement. This is our new our way almost, you know. So there was a time where salute was like the word. When I was in high school, that was how we, agreed with one another or called one another or, just spoke in those days. And we used to say salute us as well. That was a real thing. I didn't invent it. That was the actual term. And that is, and like I say, it's spoken by only a certain group of gangsters in prison. The word salute. You do salute Owens generally because gangs are also broken down in hierarchy like the army. So you got your general, your captain, your lieutenants, your constables and so forth. And what. So in the same way, it can be used for all the gangs. There's only one specific gang that really speaks with that word, you know. And because it became so popular, it flooded out of prison and flooded into the communities. And guys who came out of jail were speaking like they were still in jail. So kids heard it, and then kids adopted it. And next thing you know, we're all speaking like that. So when I started rapping, there were certain things I was like, hey, I want to say this, but I know where it comes from. And I know I'm not allowed to use it because I'm not one of them. So let me flip this thing. Let me take this word, this negative word, this word that only belongs in a dark place, this word that only comes from the gates. Let me use this word, but let me transform the meaning. So, salute us, but salute us as people of color, as the oppressed, as the ones who struggled, as the ones who got their surnames taken away, as the ones who were enslaved. Salute us for not dying, for not failing, for not quitting, for not giving up. We deserve to be saluted for that. And when I did that, that was kind of the first time I had explored this language that I come from. I'd never broken down the language that I speak ever, because I was told that this language is incorrect. My mother never wanted me to speak like that. She sent me to good schools so that I wouldn't speak like that. But the problem is we lived in an area where everybody spoke like that. Yeah. So it didn't matter at the end of the day. But she never wanted me to come out like one of those, you know. And I think maybe that's also why I did what I did and, tried to keep on the straight path for her sake. I didn't want to let her down, you know. So I thought, hey, this language thing, I know this is going to piss a lot of people off. I know this is going to kind of like, make people think that I'm one thing when I'm not. But at the end of the day, I speak like this. I've been speaking like this for years. So I need to include some of this in the rap, in the music. Because when I listened to, these American raps for all these years, they were saying dope and fresh and fly and that shit is ill, son. And I'm like, God damn, now I say that in my raps, but I don't speak like that. Yeah. I don't speak it. I rap it. But when I'm outside, we have our own dialect. We have our own dialogues. We have our own words that we say. Away, duidelijk. You know what I mean? So it's like, I had to include some of that so that I could make it finally complete. So I could complete this rap picture.
And that's what's always worked for us in terms of...
Yes. I took it from
us
you.
Taking a little bit of, because even us as being hip-hop heads that wanted to do the hip-hop that we grew up listening to, there was a crossroads that's like, but why is our shit not going as far as Brown Dash's joints? Why is our shit not slapping like TKZ's joints? They dropped them shits 20 years ago. Yeah. It's in the tongue.
It's in the mother tongue, baby.
Olim, you've got to use it. You've got to use it. Like, we can't, even like when you were like a Model C kid, it's tough. Or you're a private school kid, it's tough. Because you leave that private school speaking a different type of English. And by the time you come back, and you go back to Guamasho, you go back to Mlazi, people are asking you, what happened to you? But you were being told like you have to speak like that so you can get the job.
So you can get the job.
Speak like that so you can
be taken seriously.
So you can be taken seriously.
And they won't think of you as like a criminal or some shit.
Exactly.
Because just that one word that you might use might give them the idea of, this guy's uneducated.
Even just walking into a room of white people or whatever, or people that are educated and saying, sure. Who's it? Away. It shouldn't be a negative thing. It shouldn't be a thing that says you're not going to make it far in life.
Just because you speak a certain
Just because you speak a certain way. It's all about the content of the character.
And for me now, that is when I finally found that balance. When I made the song Salutas and broke down the word and gave it a new meaning almost, I found my balance. I found my pocket. I found my calling. I found my purpose in life. I'd made songs before that, but I'd never ever, like I said, broke down the language to that point where I was actually like comfortable with saying these things and having no fear of acceptance. They've never accepted me, so that is why I say what I want to say either way, because from the beginning it's been tough. From the beginning it's been a climb, it's been a battle, it's been always explaining myself and giving definitions of certain things. So I was like, fuck it, they don't accept me anyway. Even when I try and rap like them, even when I try and rap American and say ill and say all these, these Western words, they still don't accept me. Because now they're saying, but you're not being original, you're not being yourself. You don't speak like that.
No matter how smooth
No matter how smooth I did it, no matter how well I did it, they were like, we don't believe it. Because it's not you.
Why Jen?
My man. We could go on all day, bro. And we speak long on the phone when you phone me. This is our phone call duration.
This is actually a phone call.
This is a phone call from Ricky Rick, ladies and gentlemen. It lasts this long.
Just like the phone call, I don't say much. I just listen.
He lets me speak most of the time. And that's why you call me. You call me to get my take on whatever it is that you may be asking me, whatever it is that you may be feeling. Or maybe ask me, do I feel the same way? So that is why we speak on the phone, and that's why it lasts so long.
In 100 years from now, we'll all be gone.
Salute.
All of this, will disappear, it will disintegrate, maybe it will burn down, it will freeze over. This board will stop working, these mics will be useless. When that time comes, what do you want people to remember about YoungstaCPT?
Why gentle the end? Why gentle the end, bro? I used to want to represent something that was already established in the beginning. I never wanted to make something. I never wanted to be independent, bro. That I can tell you with an honest heart. I never wanted to be an independent artist. I wanted to be signed to a major label. I wanted to be like, my dream when I was a lighty was to be signed to Def Jam. That was my dream. I used to draw that logo so much. The D and the J. Def and the Jam. I used to love that shit. And then Rockefeller, I always wanted to be signed to The Rock, And these are the kinds of aspirations I had growing up. I never wanted to start my own fucking label. I never ever wanted to do that. Just because I felt like I didn't have the smarts, or I didn't have like the necessary education and knowledge to run something like that and be that that important or be the head of something. I didn't feel like I had that ability, So I did this out of necessity. I did this because I had no choice. No labels wanted to sign me at the time. And nobody really saw any future in this or potential in it or saw, I suppose, a financial value in it or financial gain. Because, a label is an investor. So they invest in their artists. And I don't think they saw the investment in me and they didn't see the return either. So the only reason I started my own shit is because I had to. Otherwise, I was going to be forgotten in this whole game. And now that, like I say, the album came out, it did what it did, I at least took some W's as well. I'm able now to look forward and be like, okay, eventually my time is going to run out in whatever way it does. So who is as hardworking as me? Who hustles as hard as me? Who's as hungry as I was? Who needs this shot and won't waste it and won't blow it and won't fuck up an opportunity like this? So I know everybody can't release 30 mixtapes. I know everybody can't kill 20 features in 3 months. But if I set that as my standard, and these artists that I mentioned now, the ones that are kind of around me every day and being influenced by me every day, they're not going to do that. But they know that that is the standard. They constantly have to be at every time they do something. Every time they step into the booth, it must be like, hey, this is the last feature I might ever do. Every time I get on the stage, be like, hey, I have to prove myself to these motherfuckers. When I step on stage at Cotton Fest, I don't feel comfortable like, oh yeah, everybody knows who the fuck I am. I step on there with like, hey, half these motherfuckers don't know me. So when I leave here tonight, they're going to remember my name. If not my name, they're just going to say, CPT. That's all I want. So I know I have some shit to prove. So I'm never ever content really. I'm pleased with what I've done. Like I say, we took some W's, but I still know there's more work to be done in terms of me. But for now, I can actually look back and say okay, who is going to continue my legacy? So my main thing when I say YG until the end is what I want people to remember. That just translates to legacy. My legacy is YGN, and I want them to know, like you said, my brother's t-shirt there at the back, it says YGN till the end on his t-shirt. There it is. YGN till the end. So I wanted to be affiliated to something that was already established. I wanted to be affiliated to something that was already popular, so that I didn't have to build my own popularity. I could just ride off the back of what was already trending. But they didn't give me that shit. I wanted it, they never gave it to me. So what I did was, instead, I just, established myself and made them the establishment. I made my brother the establishment. I made my partners the establishment now. We first wanted to be with someone that was already established. So 100 years from now, I want him to say, hey, this motherfucker stood on his own 2 feet by himself for his entire career. And he never quit, he never gave up. And only when they put him in the ground was the time they could silence him. And even then, the music carried on in his memory. But what I want them to remember about me, it was YGN till the end, bro. Till the very end, till the bitter end, until it's over.
Lab Live.
Salute, yeah. But can this problem be rectified?
It can be rectified, yes. First of all, the government must step in and get rid of the gangsters, this drugs. That's number one. And then all the church leaders must come together, because they are the majority, whether you're Anglican, whether you're Muslim or Methodist, old Methodist, new Methodist. They've got the congregation, they've got the hang of the people. I mean, they're spiritual. People believe when they sit in a church, they must listen and obey.
God is there. That's the house of God.
So it can be rectified. There's no such thing that cannot be rectified. Because God tells you in the Quran, God says, look what happened to those before you. Look into the past and see what happened to those before you who disobeyed. They were destroyed. So yes, everything can be, as far as I'm concerned, it can be rectified. But you got to get rid of the tyrant leaders. You got to get rid of them right out of government, right up to the normal street worker that's corrupt. And then you can get this thing right. But if you don't, it will go on for centuries. And it's not only going to affect the poor, it's going to affect the rich too. Make no mistake about it. Because the rich are supposed to look after the poor. The haves has got to look after the have-nots. In other words, if you've got in abundance, see to your poor. But I maintain it can be made right. I maintain that. And I'm not going to every time blame the Boere, the Afrikaners. Because not all Afrikaners were bad. No. Not God, they never created bad people.
Yes.
God never created bad people.
You learn how
people
to be bad in
become bad out of themselves, and that's greed. Or the poor do not want to lift them out of the murky water. And yet there's a saying that says, out of the murky water, or out of the dirtiest water, comes the whitest lily. That tells you something, that there can be change. There can be change. Because all the lily requires is the nutrients out of the water to live on. And it comes out beautiful. So you got to look into the past and see, was it a benefit or was it bad? Was it good for me or was it bad for me? And extract the good. Make the negative a positive. That's what we got to do.